Welcome back to yet another episode of Catching Up with Ella. Yes, I'm really committing to this podcast. Swear to God. If you're here for the first time, this is basically where I yap about some of the interesting things going on in my life or interesting realizations that I have about my life that hopefully will inspire or at least provoke you in a positive way. And I will do my best to keep the words that I use within the most common 3,000 range so that as you listen back to the video, and I'll speak in a very slow way, that you can understand without any help of a dictionary, that you can just kind of understand based on the context. That's what I want to accomplish with this podcast. I want to entertain and educate because that's how I learned my English as well. But that's beside the point. On today's episode, I want to talk about what happened in the 5 years, in the past 5 years, because if you have been following me for a while, which I'm hoping you're still sticking around, you would notice that between the year 2020 to even all the way until 2022, I was not posting a lot of videos, and the videos that I did post were kind of sporadic, both in terms of how often I post and in terms of the specific topics that I post. They were not strictly English related, or if there were, occasionally I would also add topics about my life. So it was not apparent, it was not obvious what my channel was about. So then understandably, people kind of fell off the wagon, so to speak, or they were just upset. Like some people really took it personally that I did not post on a regular schedule, and I understand that. On Bilibili and YouTube, probably people didn't care that I wasn't posting regularly, but certainly with TikTok or Douyin, some people stopped following me because one, I was not posting like short snippets anymore, and two, I was not posting a lot. Like I stopped uploading until like very recently that I start uploading on TikTok again. So I just wanted to address the elephant in the room. Not that anyone cared, but for my own journey, I think now it's time that I feel comfortable to talk about it. I finally feel somewhat comfortable talking about it. So there's basically 3 levels to my journey. One is the logistical aspect. During 2020 and 2020, like we would say end of 2021, we were in the throes of pandemic. And it just so happened that I was moving places. So before 2020, I had lived on my own. I had an apartment. I had a 2-bedroom apartment. And around 2020 was when my apartment complex raised the rent. I had later found out, and this is like what's interesting about America. I had later found out that if I had just stuck around and not pay rent, nobody can do anything to me because a lot of people were losing their jobs back then, and the landlords here, especially in California, landlords don't have the upper hand. Like you cannot evict people that easily, especially during a global health crisis. But I was a goody two shoe. I was like, you're gonna raise my rent. I don't want this. It's not even worth the price. So I moved back in with my mom. We actually got a different place other than the one that I had previously moved out of. Before I moved into my apartment, I stayed with my mom in another place. But this time around, we got both of our stuff together, put it in the same house. And there's just a lot of stuff to be moved around. It had been a while before we lived together again. So we had to work out our differences and try to live together again, which I love my mom, but like living with family is another feat. And I have a lot of friends that have tried living with their family for a long period of time, and they also love their family, but they just cannot do it. But luckily, fast forward to 2024, we're on good terms, we get along, everything's fine. But back then there was a lot of stuff to be negotiated, compromised. So yeah, and moving several times, especially moving all your furniture, all your life into a different place just takes a toll on you. So I really wasn't concerned about my regular schedule, truthfully. So that's the logistical aspect. And then I want to also talk about my mental well-being at the time. At the end of 2019, I went back to China, visited my dad, and long story short, me and my dad have a complicated relationship. Okay, sometimes we get along well. Other times, I would say most of the time, we do not have a functional relationship, and I think the end of 2019 was what set it off. And so mentally I wasn't doing well. Okay, and I would say from 2019, end of 2019 to maybe mid 2022, I was not in a good headspace, and I hate talking about it without giving you too much details, but this is as much as I can get into without outing him, without, because I know he also shows my videos to his friends, so I don't want to put more dent in our relationship than I have to. But I want to address it because in the past I've talked about him and his impact, his positive influence in my life, in my English learning journey, and also in just my life. He was a mentor. He was a great mentor, and I still maintain what I said about him. But we do not have the best relationship. And I would wager that most people don't, especially with Chinese parents, Chinese kids. It's even more taboo to talk about it. Like divorces and spousal conflicts are like dinner table topics. Like people talk more openly about it now. But with parental conflicts, it's a lot more taboo. It's taboo everywhere, but especially in Chinese culture, like people dismiss it. And it wasn't until just in the last few years that I realized, there's more than what meets the eye. Like my parents aren't all good, just like they weren't all bad. And the thing with my father is that our relationship was very intertwined with my English learning, my English teaching, my career, that when that kind of went south, my confidence with my journey, with my career, with my creative journey kind of also went down. So for the longest time, I truly, truly did not have the excitement, the faith, the confidence that I once had when my channel was small, when he wasn't really necessarily watching over me, like he wasn't as invested. But all of a sudden, I felt like everyone was watching me. I just felt very overwhelmed. Like I lost the passion for making videos, truthfully. Like you would think, as I grew more followers, as people are leaving more and more personal comments, like telling me, hey, you're this and that, like I feel really close to you, I feel inspired by you. Like you would think as these external validations just keep rolling in, you as a creator would feel more empowered. But just coming from my personal experience, if you haven't dealt with your past trauma, or in my case immediate bad reaction from people that you truly care about and look up to your entire life, then all that external validation is nothing. It's like when you tell a beautiful girl, like objectively drop dead gorgeous girl, that she's beautiful, but if she's been abused her whole life, or if she's been insecure and there's no one to tell her no, you gotta be confident. If she doesn't feel it inside, there's no use telling her that. Like that external validation is not gonna do her any good, and it's probably gonna make her feel like everyone is lying to her. So for better or worse, I had a bit of a imposter syndrome. It's not that I don't believe in my skill as an English teacher, it's all the things around it, like, oh, I'm not hardworking enough, or my courses are not professional looking enough, like not in terms of the content, but like perhaps the graphic designs aspect, or how I structure my curriculum. And it's not just my dad either. This is a funny anecdote. Some multi-channel network, or it was an organization that's a talent agency for all the popular English content creators, popular English teachers rather, online. And this organization reached out to me being like, hey, make a course with us. We'll give you 50% of the revenue. And I guess as a selling tactic to get me on board, the main person in charge of this organization was like, he bought one of my courses, and frankly, the course was not like professionally produced, but I had nevertheless put a lot of thought into it, poured my heart out, and he just goes, oh, this and that isn't great. Not talking about the actual English content, but like just how well designed my slides were. And he also probably meant well, like he meant it as a constructive feedback, and I did not take it lightly. But looking back now, knowing the whole story of how the agency, how the organization went down, how they became a sellout completely, he probably said that to me mostly to try to get me to feel, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I better sign on with them. And they're going to take 50% of my income, which is a lot of money if you're not doing much. Like, frankly, I've heard so many horrible things about this company, and, people can't talk about it because they signed non-disclosure agreement, NDAs, and I did not sign a thing, so I get to blabber about it. But you guys don't know what company I'm speaking of because I'm not going to drop any names. But just know there are people out there to intentionally put you down so that they can take advantage of you, essentially. And luckily, I was not taken advantage of, but I was nevertheless kind of questioning everything that I do creatively, professionally. It took me a while to get out of that, honestly. And for a while there, I was like, I'm not going to teach English anymore, which is, if you have been following me for a while, like, people have asked like, oh, I thought you said you didn't want to put videos out anymore. That's not what I meant. Like, I still wanted to create content. I still wanted to, if anything, explore what else I'm good at in terms of creating content. I just, for a while there, because my personal confidence was so tied to this one thing, that when people closest to me started attacking my skill in that, and like seemingly professional people started, giving me constructive feedback about how bad I was then questioning not only my professional skills, but also my personal skills, my personal confidence. Does that make sense? It'll come together. So yeah, I would say that was the mental / creative aspect to it all. And the most important reason, which I guess the most important aspect, is just like I needed time to work out the kinks between me and my dad. Not actively with him, though. I was working on myself. I was working on my daddy issues. I was working on my confidence all on my own from a distance. And I'm so thankful that I did that. I'm a human. Like, of course, I worry about falling off the wagon, not posting enough videos, not posting enough good videos, and people not watching me and me losing it all. I worry about that. But at the same time, there's nothing more important to me than my mental well-being, than my overall well-being. And everything starts from me. Everything. The reason I had a channel, the reason I had any sort of audience or influence at all, was because I was relatively solid, or at least so I thought. I was more solid and everything came from a place of stability and confidence and excitement. So what good is in just mechanically trying so hard without feeling good inside? If you have all the metrics, all the material things that are going well, but inside you're struggling, that sounds like a nightmare to me. I mean, it's not entirely the end of the world. Like, you still have to like pay the bills and everything. When you have the means to just sustain yourself, like I certainly wasn't making as much money when I wasn't posting regularly, but luckily I still had the means to sustain myself and spend time on myself to work on my insides, to work on my inner world. And yeah, like I said, I was able to grow and mature. I made friends during that time. A lot of people don't know this, but when I started making videos, it was the end of 2017, but like I truly only took off mid 2018, and I had only moved to California 2 years prior. But even during those 2 years, I was either like moving around a bunch from people's rooms to the next place, just never having a stable base, or I had a job, and gosh, I'll tell you more about my job and how awful not the people were, but like just the circumstance was. But yeah, at that job, I was not interacting with girls or people my age, frankly. So I did not have any friends. And obviously, when I started making videos online and the videos started doing well, I was consumed by it. And back then, I enjoyed it. You know, when the going gets well and you have a good hand, you want to put all your energy, all your resources into this one thing that is going well. And for a while, it's gonna work. But I basically one day found myself alone in my apartment, not having any friends, not knowing what to do. And all I can do is go online, make videos. That's all my life was about. And not saying it's the worst or anything. And sometimes I still miss doing that. Like I will lock myself up if I need to finish a project. I would intentionally not socialize because otherwise I can't get anything done. If your entire life is just that, it's not sustainable. After a while, you'll go crazy. And I almost did. So what had started as a selfish need, or perhaps not so selfish, but a very serving need to heal my wounds and feel normal again, gradually evolved into a more healthy, balanced life full of friends, good company, different events, different interests. And although I don't post about it like in a video format, I from time to time will post like pictures of my life, a little vlog here and there. For the most part, I keep it private because one, it's a lot to post so many things. And two, that's not what I'm known for. Like, I'm not known for my personal content. Although I am doing my best to challenge that. I think the reason I did not reveal too much about myself before, like at least in terms of like what I'm doing day to day, is that I truthfully don't think people will find me interesting. Like, if I don't have anything valuable to give, why would people watch me? Why would people listen to me? That is honestly the main reason. When you first upload a video, maybe a month into it, 2 months into it, you're still kind of cringed by it. But when you watch a video that you posted 5 years ago, you're like, oh my God, who is she? Because there's enough time in between that you almost don't recognize this person. So I started watching my old content and sometimes I am impressed with myself, if not entertained. So I think when you're too close to yourself, when you don't have a healthy, balanced feedback system, like when you don't have good friends telling you real feedback of you, like good and bad feedback, you start to think like, who are you to even have anything to say or have people listen to you? So anyway, I, behind the scenes, have become a more rounded person. You know, I've made my peace with my upbringing, my family dynamic. Luckily, I have a great relationship with my mom now. So I'm grateful for the one lively, functional relationship that I have with one parent. And I have great friends now. Like, I could cry talking about my friends and how I found them. Like, it's night and day when you make friends in your school days versus in your 20s, 30s. I'm almost 30 now, so I can't be the only one that knows how tough it is to make friends in your 30s, let alone in a brand new country that you didn't grow up in. But I'll talk about that later, hopefully in the next episode, how to make friends, how to make true friends in your 30s, your 20s, your 40s, whatnot. I'm the type of person that would rather have 1 billion friends than $1 billion. And I know it sounds corny. Bear in mind, I'm speaking of friends, not acquaintances. Like, they have to have a connection with you in some capacity. They're not just like Facebook friends. So it's a lot more serious. It's a lot more impossible to maintain that many friends. I think I only have like 5 people that I consider, like, maybe more than 5, but like 5 closest friends that I can think of. So maybe even less than 5, like 3 at most. But even to get those 3 took forever because you don't meet your best friend like on day one. You have to keep trying, and sometimes you think this person will work. Sometimes you realize, oh no, we actually have grown apart. And sometimes it's not a personal thing, like people move away, get married, have kids, so you just naturally don't have time for each other, or people have their issues, so they just naturally become more and more antisocial, and sometimes you're the one that messed up. So I guess one of the difficulties about making friends in your 20s is that people don't have a reason to stay in your life. Unlike when you're in school or when you work together, you just show up every day and you don't question it because schools force you to show up. So you just kind of go about life collecting these friends that just popped into your life. Whereas in your 20s, you don't go to unless you go to church, but you don't go to a collective base anymore. You certainly don't have to. Sometimes people do, but most people don't have to. I have a whole theory about like why it's almost impossible to make friends nowadays, especially in America where everyone is so far away from everyone. Like it's not a walkable city where you can just bump into someone, but that's another day. That's another topic for another day. So yeah, that's why I kind of quote unquote disappeared. I have occasionally pop back in to make random videos, and I'm glad that sometimes I make videos that don't pertain to my niche. Otherwise, those silly videos were good for my mental health. Like I enjoyed making something just for the sake of it. Yeah, I'm still kind of in that phase, including this podcast. A lot of people have badgered me about making a podcast in the past, but I mentally wasn't in the right place because it would have taken a lot out of me to be somewhat authentic, vulnerable, but also disciplined enough to keep it useful and educational. I would either become too vulnerable and too raw and just spilled too much, or too loose, where the people that are trying to learn English wouldn't have benefited from it. But thankfully now I'm in a better place. That's why for the longest time people were like, when are you starting a podcast? And I have like way before I have a podcast, but that was more like strictly about learning English, and I was speaking Chinese, and yeah, it was a lot more amateur hour. I'm just professionally, I know what I'm doing. I know how to host a podcast. Mentally I'm good, creatively I'm good. So sometimes it's all about timing. You can have an idea in 2024, but it won't come into fruition until 2028. And that's okay. It's like planting a seed in the soil. You have to give it time. You can't yell at a seed for seemingly not doing anything. It's doing something. You just can't see it. And who knows, the seed might grow into a maple tree, a pine tree, one of those giant sequoia trees. When it starts, it's so small. It's like almost despicably small that you can almost ignore, but don't ignore it, okay? But yeah, don't ignore your little idea, even though realistically for now you can't pursue it. Just like when I started my channel, even though it was 2017, 2018, I had already been thinking of an idea for an ebook, like I thought of writing a book before I started thinking of like making videos. And that was in 2015, 2016. And it took me getting heartbroken and quitting my job to fully commit to creating content. So I'm comfortable with the idea of letting things take their time. I understand if you're not patient with me, but just know that I read your comments, I read your suggestions. If you keep asking and if the idea is good enough, it will plant itself into the soil that is my heart, that is my creative playground in my head. If this video gets a good reception, I will talk more openly about my estrangement with my dad, not from a retaliation point of view, but just from, I don't want it to be a taboo topic. I feel like people don't have to suffer alone. It's a very common issue, more common perhaps not with my generation, and people are probably not outwardly explicitly estranged from their parents, but people sometimes move away to a different country for that particular reason, but they just don't talk about it. They act like, oh, I'm there to better my future, or I'm there for my new job, but it's also because I want to be away from my parents. We have forms of estrangement like that. We just don't explicitly talk about it. And just because you move away and it's out of sight, out of mind, doesn't mean the issues are gone. The trauma is gone. No, it's quite the opposite. Sometimes it sneaks up on you. That's why I made such horrible decisions in dating before, or even in making friends. It's all kind of seeped into every other area in my life. And though I have made my peace with it now, it's still an ongoing work. I have to catch myself when I think, when I interact with people that give me triggers, I have to remove myself from a situation and remember the work that I had to do. And let's see, what else did I go through? Ooh, I had a glow up in some way. I hate to be the one talking about it, but people have told me that I look better now, and I just want to briefly mention it. First things first, I don't care about my looks. Perhaps care about is the wrong choice of word. Obviously, I care about looking good. I feel good when I look good. That's why I put on makeup. That's why I'm particular about my style, my wardrobe. But that's also similar to like me smelling good every day, even though you can't see my perfume, or brushing my teeth, or grooming, or trying nice places, nice coffee shops, it's part of my self-care. Before I talk about my glow up, I want to talk about my glow down, because back when I first started posting videos, it was like a year after my last job, my only job in America rather, and it was a combination of me having to work in a male dominant industry, and also just me trying to diminish myself in front of my then boyfriend, who's now an ex, obviously. But like, my job was like, my coworkers were all men, older men rather. My clients were all men, older men too, potential clients too. You would think like me with my bald ass head would get less harassed at my job, but no. So for me to come to my true femininity, to like dress up and dress feminine and wear makeup, did not make me feel safe. That's why I shaved my head, like, which is probably partly why I shaved my head. That's why I didn't care about my style as much. That's why I didn't prioritize it. Truthfully, I didn't prioritize it. And my ex-boyfriend was a notorious narcissist. Anytime I dressed up or like did not center him in my life, I'll get either negged, or he'll just come with me with a passive-aggressive comment. So I didn't want him to feel insecure whenever I dress up, so I just like almost subconsciously made myself ugly to make himself feel safe. And even after I left the relationship, it still took me a while to fully, one, feel comfortable in my own skin, and two, know what I'm doing, like know what style looks good on me, what, proportion, everything looks good. And it took a lot of trial and error and looking at different people's styles and for inspiration rather. I would just say this: when I started feeling better about myself, and I started not necessarily caring about my image, but caring about myself as a whole package, I really was having fun. Like when I started getting on different Pinterest boards or looking at outfits online, I really was just mostly inspired. So I was willing to try different things. And around the time of the pandemic, like mid-pandemic, my mom hooked me up with this medical spa, and we did some procedures. Like one thing is my chin. Like I had a very short, almost receded chin that was not doing me any good. I think it was partly genetics and partly because like I did not have the best posture going up. Like if you don't have proper posture all throughout, your chin would just like recede. And I think I might have been mouth breathing also. So when you breathe with your mouth, it just recedes even more. So I got a chin filler. What else did I do? I got facial fat dissolving injection. It's such a mouthful, but yeah, basically shots to dissolve my excess fat here. I used to have a double chin, but it wasn't like, the double chin was like mostly because of the recessed chin. When I had the chin filler, even when I wasn't like dissolving the fat around here, it naturally became better. So those were probably the most important things that I did that changed the game for me. Throughout the years, I would occasionally go in to like do some lifts. Like I forget what they're called. I did therapy, which is using ultrasound, laser. Look into it. Don't take my advice, okay? Do it at your own risk. It was hella painful. Therapy was like once a year maybe, and it basically stimulates your cells regrowth, so makes your face look brighter, tighter. And I did a couple therapies, like treatments like that. Not necessarily always therapy. Yeah, so I did chin filler, face fat dissolver, and then treatments on the machine to lift my face, to brighten my skin tone, to have the cell turnover be faster. And yeah, that's about it. A while ago, I got like fillers here to level out my laugh line. And I actually stopped going in for touch-ups because one, it doesn't really seem to do much because as long as you have fat here, it's gonna like fold over. So if you put filler here, it's just gonna look fake. I think when I get older and richer, I'm gonna just get a facelift so that there's no fat like weighing down on it. But so far, I don't care, nor do I have the money for it. I did under eye filler also a few years ago. I kept wanting to get touch-ups because growing up I've always had really dark tear trouts and dark eye circle. It's just genetics, but they actually were like, no, if you get it, it will look too fake, which kudos to them. Like, good integrity on your part. Like, they don't recommend just everything for me. Like, that's the thing with med spas. Like, you want to go to obviously a professional one, like someone that knows their stuff, someone that won't kill you accidentally, but you also want to get someone that is tasteful. Okay, that has good taste. I think I'm not necessarily the prettiest or the best dressed, but I know my style. I know what works for me. I know what is proportionate. I know what is like what outfits have good harmony, like what procedures to have so that I don't look overly unnatural. That is pretty much what had gone on in the past 5 years, I want to say. All the major things. That's it. I'll see you in the next one. Let me know if you like this format, what other subject or events you want me to talk about. I'm an open book. I receive feedback. I might not necessarily jump on your idea right away, but I'll definitely take it into consideration. So if you like this video, remember to give it a thumbs up or leave a comment. Just any way you can let me know to please keep this going. Like, any encouragement is gonna force me to come back to this project because otherwise, yeah, I might not have the confidence to see it through. All right. Love you guys so much. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.